Our final segment concerns emerging controversy and how reporters cover wildfires. An August 26th Christian Science Monitor article titled, "Where Should Reporters Draw the Line in Covering Wildfires?" began by telling the brief story of the behavior of an ABC News television crew a few days after the start of the McKinney Fire in Northern California's Klamath Forest. The news crew had brought a local resident, Sherry Marchetti Perot, to the site of the fire and followed her on camera as she searched for a missing uncle. The monitor went on to say, quote, "What happened next drew widespread condemnation. ABC national correspondent Matt Gutman reported from the site that Ms. Marchetti Perot had found the body of her uncle. Mr. Gutman identified the victim as John Cogan long before authorities officially did so." Unquote. Residents accused ABC of exploiting Ms. Marchetti Perot. Some journalists accused the news crew of creating their own news, and the sheriff announced a criminal investigation focused on possible charges of trespassing and tampering with a crime scene. The legal background of this debacle is that California law allows journalists to enter restricted burn zones before the general public. The Monitor report indicated that sometimes this access has led to conflict with local residents. This law, and the behavior of journalists in accord with this law in disasters like wildfires, raise many questions. One fundamental sociological question is, what is the role of a journalist in such a situation? We can draw a distinction between information someone might want to know on the one hand, and information someone might need to know on the other. But before using this distinction, we have to acknowledge the diversity of the someones who are the subject of the question. Disparate someones include those who live, work, or otherwise occupy areas threatened by the fire, and loved ones of the former. These are people closest to the event who perhaps have particular interests. For example, some of them may want to know whether their home at 444 Fee Avenue has burned yet. At some point, those who are directly connected to the event need to know such information. Other disparate someones include people in the general public. These people may have no knowledge of any addresses threatened by the unfolding disaster, but knowing some of the facts of the event might still be important to them. For example, knowledge of the event might lead people to act differently. Perhaps they take a look at their own fire insurance. Perhaps the next time they consider moving, they integrate knowledge of fire risk in their assessment. Now, we can ask, was Ms. Sherry Marchetti Perot's step-by-step search through the burned-out property a need-to-know matter for anyone other than her family, and friends? Was it a want-to-know matter, and if so, for whom? Or was it simply a fairly easy way for a news organization to handle the event? Sociologists such as Edward Epstein and Todd Gitlin long ago helped establish that news organizations frame any story they cover. Basically, one of the key things that a frame does is it subtly and not so subtly conveys for whom one should cheer and at whom one should boo. For example, every time the news anchor smilingly asserts that the news is, quote, "good, house prices are up," they are deploying a frame that suggests we should cheer the homeowners who are amassing increasing wealth and completely ignore anyone trying to buy their first house. To take someone who is worried about a loved one into the burn zone to look for them is arguably one of the laziest ways to cover the event. It deploys a frame that has the audience hoping for a living reunion, with all the tension a real possibility of finding a dead body can offer. Is this the job of a journalist, or would this job be better left to trained search and rescue personnel and grief counselors? Further, does such coverage meet a need of the wider public? This incident is just the most extreme example of a largely uninformative pattern of news coverage. Every year there are wildfires across the West, and every year we see the same shots on video. Close-ups and medium shots of the fire burning, helicopters ferrying water to the blaze, and planes dropping fire retardant. You know what we rarely see? A shot tracing the perimeter of the fire, or a topological map of the fire, either with clearly marked boundaries, so we can grasp the full extent and challenge of the blaze. It's the same with almost all disasters. When covering a hurricane, news organizations often show National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration satellite images of the massive storm. This coverage suggests the journalists recognize there is informative value in a big picture perspective. But outside of hurricanes, they seem to forget that fact. Thus, be it earthquake, flood, tornado, or tsunami, the camera operator, guided by the inertial norms of video news, zooms in on a specific spot of damage, or shows a few people caught in the middle of the disaster. Rarely do they show the public the breadth of the earthquake footprint, flooded area, tsunami zone, or tornado path from start to end. The news is seemingly obsessed with covering the personal tragedy, and thereby misses the forest for the trees. Sociologists point to financial pressures, reduced budgets, norms and traditions of coverage, and more to explain what is and is not provided by the news services. But we can ask, what perspective is most helpful? An up-close and personal look at one person's experience, or a big picture look at the conditions affecting a large swath of the public? And we can ask, what kind of take does the public need at the time of the event? And what do they need sometime afterwards? The ABC's news crew may not have asked any of these questions when they made their way into the burn zone, while firefighters were still battling the fire just a little ways away. But these are questions we can ask when disaster inevitably strikes again. And based on the answers we provide, we can make a conscious decision of whether or not to watch and listen when journalists insert a camera and microphone into the face of family tragedy as they turn away from informing the public about the breadth and reach of the blazing inferno itself. That's This Week in Sociological Perspective. We'll be back next week with another interview with an author of some important sociological research and more sociological insights on an issue in the news. Till then, take care. If you're watching this on YouTube, I have 3 brief requests to make and 1 offer to extend. My requests: if you find the show or episode interesting, please like, subscribe, and comment. My offer: if you want to receive no more than 1 email a week with a link to the new TWiSP episode, click the link in the description and then enter your email address. By doing this, you assure you will be notified no more than once a week about new TWiSP episodes. Thanks. I appreciate it.